This video brought to you in association with Amazon.com, your one-stop shop to all things Pittsburgh Steelers, NFL, and much, much more. Links in the description. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers have the worst offense in the AFC North? Hello everyone, I'm Savak, and that's what we're tackling today. So if you've seen my other videos, then you probably know we've covered all the other offenses in that division, assessing what they lost and what they gained to try and gauge how they'll perform in the coming season. And it's kind of hard to have that conversation without mentioning the Steelers. Recently, TPS did a video listing the top 10 triplets in NFL history, and coming in at number 8 were the affectionately named Killer Bees of recent Pittsburgh history. If the list were all about talent, the Killer Bees would have easily been in the top 3, but it's not all about talent. For as talented as that trio was, there will always be an asterisk next to their name because of what they didn't do with their window. For the 5 years they were together, we can't count 2018 since L. Bell was sitting out, they made the playoffs in 4 of those seasons. However, they only managed 3 playoff victories during that time. A wild card win over the Bengals in 2015, they would be stopped in the divisional round by the Broncos. Then they would get their farthest in 2016 with wins both in the wild card round over the Dolphins, blowout, damn shame for the Dolphins, and then the divisional round over the Chiefs, but they would go on to get dismantled by the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. So what was the problem? Why couldn't the Steelers get over the hump with the level of talent available on offense? A Super Bowl winning quarterback paired with a premier superstar receiver and a Pro Bowl caliber running back? That's where it gets complicated. Antonio Brown's talent cannot be understated. 7-time Pro Bowler who at different times led the NFL in receiving yards, receptions, touchdown catches. Of the 9 seasons he spent in Pittsburgh, 7 of them were 1,000-yard seasons. But even that's a little misleading, because in those 7 years, he was never under 1,100 yards. The issue? For as great as he was, Antonio was in fact a distraction. Whether he was arguing with the coaches, arguing with Ben, throwing temper tantrums, skipping meetings, showing up late, taking shots at media members, Twitter wars, or broadcasting Mike Tomlin's fiery locker room speech on Facebook Live, the Steelers were constantly caught in a hurricane of distractions, and right in the eye of that storm was Antonio Brown. This, of course, is not meant to absolve anyone else of their roles in the organization's dysfunction, but it is important to recognize the extent to which AB and his larger-than-life brand affected the whole situation. Next up, Le'Veon Bell. 3-time Pro Bowl running back with nearly 8,000 all-purpose yards in his 5 seasons playing. This is made even more impressive when you see how often he wasn't playing. 2014 was the only season in which Le'Veon Bell played in all 16 games. Ironically enough, just before the start of that season, Le'Veon and then teammate LeGarrette Blount were both arrested on DUI and marijuana possession charges. As a result, Bell was suspended by the NFL for the first 4 games of 2015. On April 9th of that year, it was reported that the suspension was reduced to 3 games, and then on July 28th, it was further reduced from 3 to 2 following a successful appeal. But in Week 8 against the Cincinnati Bengals, Bell suffered a season-ending torn MCL during the second quarter after taking a tackle from linebacker Vontaze Burfict. The following day, the Steelers placed him on injured reserve, effectively ending his season. Then in 2016, Bell was suspended for the first 3 games of that season for missing a random drug test. Needless to say, while Le'Veon Bell wasn't a problem on the football field, he had plenty of controversy in his own right keeping him from the field. With all that in mind, it makes sense why the Steelers didn't want to give him a long-term deal, which, of course, led to him sitting out in 2018 and his eventual dismissal from the team after that. On that situation, I thought it was odd how his teammates acted during that time. Several went against what many veterans advise, which is to stay out of other people's money situations, by commenting on the situation in a way that casted Bell in a negative light and weakened his negotiating position. And honestly, when that video was released of his teammates going through his locker and taking his shit, that was just in poor taste. Finally, the third prong of the trio, Big Ben Roethlisberger. Two-time Super Bowl champion, six-time Pro Bowl selection, and he led the NFL in passing yards twice, the most recent time being this past year. We'll never know exactly what transpired between Big Ben and AB or how their relationship was, but what we do know is, up until recently, Ben had issues with accountability. That is, assuming accountability. He had no problem calling out others, which is the main issue AB claimed to have with him. Couple that with the fact that Ben is now 37 years old, has taken way more hits than he's avoided, and for the last few seasons has flirted with retirement at least once per season. And as the vets like to say, once you start thinking about retirement, mentally, you're already retired. But the Steelers doubled down on him anyways because he's won 2 Super Bowls, and did so without either of those aforementioned players. In fact, Big Ben and the Steelers lost in his 3rd Super Bowl appearance, which also happened to be Antonio Brown's rookie season. And they haven't been back since. Which leaves us with the question now. What's left of their offense, and how good can they be given what they've lost? In 2018, the absence of L. Bell gave way for young up-and-comer James Conner. Conner performed admirably, and arguably better than many people thought he would. He ranked 11th in the NFL in total yards, and was tied at 3rd in touchdowns. Suffice to say, he was pretty good. But as the TV commentators love to point out every single week, he wasn't Le'Veon Bell. This isn't an indictment of James Conner. Lord knows I wasn't complaining, as I was smart enough to snag him for my fantasy team early on in the L. Bell saga. Because once the season started, I knew he wasn't coming back. My friend actually held on to Bell for the entire season hoping he'd come back, but nope. And for as good as Conner was to start the year, we all saw it. He slowed down towards the back end of the season, highlighting the temporary nature of that bruising style of running. Thankfully, they also had Jalen Samuels, who performed well in limited action. But the Steelers should be good at wide receiver, right? Over the years, Pittsburgh has done well scouting and drafting at a few positions. Chief among them is wide receiver. They've always been adept at finding great talent, and usually at great value. Case in point, Antonio Brown was a 6th round pick. Other notable names include Martavis Bryant, 4th round pick, Hines Ward, 3rd round pick, John Stallworth was a 4th round pick. One of my personal favorites, Lynn Swann, was actually one of their few 1st round wide receivers. And of course, Juju Smith-Schuster was a 2nd round pick. Now that Brown is gone, much of the talk around Pittsburgh has been about Juju. Can he be a true number 1 receiver? A quick glance at NFL's next-gen stats suggests maybe. In terms of things like targets, catches, and yardage, Juju and AB were almost identical in 2018. But what the numbers do not show is who was covering these receivers. It's easy to be a great number 2 when you're opposite a great number 1. So we've only gotten to see Juju as he exists with AB on the field. The question is, can he still put up those numbers when defenses are keying in on him? In 2018, the Steelers' most productive pass catcher outside of AB and Juju was Vance McDonald, the tight end, and the drop-off was substantial. After Vance was James Conner, Jesse James, and finally Ryan Switzer. So who is going to be that other 1,000-yard receiver to take Juju's place, assuming Juju picks up where AB left off? Dante Moncrief, who's on his 3rd team in 6 years? And the 2 teams he departed from are constantly trying to find good receivers. He's never had a 1,000-yard season, so it doesn't seem likely. Behind him is James Washington, who was very productive at Oklahoma State and made the most of his limited opportunities last year. And based on Moncrief's track record, he has a good shot to push for the starting job. He's a good route runner with long arms and good release, which makes him perfectly suited to Pittsburgh's style of offense. The Steelers also drafted Deontay Johnson in the 3rd round this year. While he is admittedly a little unorthodox early in his routes and plays with more of a freewheeling style than you normally expect from a receiver, he can do great things when the ball is in his hands. His biggest concern will be working on reducing drops. Then in the slot will presumably be a competition between Eli Rogers and Ryan Switzer. Both have shown the ability to play the position, neither is a lock for it. Regardless of how the battle plays out, I hope they don't let Switzer go because he is the exact type of receiver that goes to New England and flourishes. As is the case with most teams, the offense's success will be dictated by their offensive line. Towards the end of last year, Pro Football Focus had Pittsburgh's offensive line ranked as the best in the NFL. The line is made up of Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, Ramon Foster, Alejandro Villanueva, and Marcus Gilbert, all seasoned vets who have been playing together for about 4 or 5 years now. They managed to keep Big Ben upright in 2018 while he stood back there and threw for over 5,000 yards, 34 touchdowns to only 16 interceptions. He was sacked only 24 times all season long, which sounds like a lot, but it's not when you consider who we're talking about. In fact, the most sacks Big Ben has ever taken in a single season is 50, and that was back in 2009. All that being said, this offense still appears to have the least teeth in the division, at least on paper, or phone screen or whatever. It's all just speculation and guesses until the sparks start flying, but what do you think? Do you agree? Will they have the weakest offensive unit in the division? Do you disagree? Do you think they're gonna show out? Let me know in the comments. Links to a bunch of cool shit from Amazon will be in the description, as well as a link to my PayPal if you'd like to donate to my channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ding the bell so that you will be the first to know when the next video drops. Share it with your friends, and thanks for watching.